Hello, this is Craig Brelsford with RedChip Companies. Thank you for joining today's event with GRRR Technology Group, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker GRRR. With us today, we have GRRR Technologies Chairman and CEO, Jay Chandan, recently appointed interim CFO, Bruce Bauer, who brings extensive experience in finance and strategy for tech startups, and John Roy, PhD, Managing Director of Water Tower Research and a former lead analyst at UBS and Merrill Lynch with more than 20 years of experience covering technology stocks. We will begin with a brief presentation in a moment, and then we'll answer your questions, including those that have been pre-submitted to us. Users may submit a question at any time by using the Q&A tool at the bottom of the Zoom window. Before we begin, please allow me to read the Safe Harbor Statement. This call may contain forward-looking statements within the meaning of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. All statements pertaining to future financial and/or operating results, along with other statements about the future expectations, beliefs, goals, plans, or prospects expressed by management, constitute forward-looking statements. Any statements that are not historical facts should also be considered forward-looking statements. Of course, forward-looking statements involve risks and uncertainties. I now turn this webinar over to the GRRR Technology team. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Craig. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this webinar. What I'm trying to achieve here today is to talk to you a little more about GRRR, get you to understand GRRR as a business and its strategy and how we are positioned to take over the next 2 to 3 years. Now, if you look at GRRR as a business today, our strategy is anchored on 3 pillars. The first most important one is product innovation. If you look at GRRR's innovation strategy over the last 2 to 3 years, it is centered around AI-powered technologies that are revolutionizing the industry, such as smart cities, cybersecurity, and infrastructure management. Now, we are at the forefront of developing AI solutions that seamlessly integrate with complex environments to deliver efficiency, security, and real-time data insights. When it comes to growth, we're seeing an unprecedented expansion across different regions, such as the Middle East, North Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, India, South Asia. Our pipeline now is surpassing more than $1.5 billion, and it's larger than ever before. And finally, the future, right? What is my vision for 2028? Whilst our pipeline has never been stronger, we are actively pursuing several large-scale projects. When finalized, will actually dwarf our recent win in the Middle East and North Africa region, as you all know. Whilst I cannot share specifics at this moment, I can tell you that we're in advanced discussions on deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and these potential contracts, some of them will be multi-phased, will help solidify our position as a leader in digital transformation by 2028. Now, for those who do not know of GRRR, sorry, Craig, could you move to slide number 3, please? Apologies. For those who do not know of GRRR, we have actually been around for a better part of 23 years, predominantly focused on AI and security convergence, and now growing into 8 countries. When we went public in July of 2022, for most of them who know, we were literally present in 1 country and we moved our headquarters to the UK. Since then, we've actually spread our wings across 7 different countries. We've expanded to more than 150 members. But more importantly, we actually now have 29 patents that have been granted, 5 on the way. Now, what we have done this year alone is what we call stellar. We have announced our 2023 numbers, as most of you know. In the first half of 2023, I think we went up by about 222% in terms of revenue. Our gross profits were up about 456% from the same period last year. But more importantly, where are we going to go next? I think we are starting to now see an active involvement in terms of building partnerships, in terms of securing much more larger contracts. But more importantly, we're trying to get into what is called as building our own appliances. Now, I will talk to you a little more in detail about that. I'm sure there are some questions regarding that. But the reason why we are getting into actually building appliances is about talking about one-stop shop. We want to be that what we call a fully customized, ready-made plug-and-play solution for that customer. And we started that process by building our products in Thailand and combined that with our Gorilla Intelligent Network Director, which we just launched last week, by the way, which has received rave reviews with customers. We believe that we are poised to lead the mid-market segment over the next couple of years. Now, if you go to the next slide, Craig, I mean, we have expanded into regions where we won projects. So it's Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Taiwan, which is our bread and butter, India, where we have our R&D and our customer success. We've expanded quite rapidly into Cairo, Middle East. We're serving Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Dubai from those regions. Of course, UK is our global headquarters and our research and development. But if you look at a couple of these new, what we call dots out there, we're actually expanding very rapidly in the South American market. So if you look at Bogota, Colombia, you've seen a press release where we've actually signed up a much larger project there. But that has allowed us to venture into Latin America. We recently signed partnerships with NCGG and ACOM based out of Miami, which is helping us expand not just in the Latin American market, but also get our foot into the door in the US markets as well. And in terms of, sorry, Craig, if you could go to the next slide, please. And in terms of what we do, a lot of people keep asking me this very same question. I mean, your website's great, Jay. What do you do? Right? How do you differentiate yourselves with others? Now, I want to keep this very simple. We have 5 verticals. It's as simple as that. We have 5 verticals under which we have a variety of products and solutions. The first most important is video analytics. This was our bread and butter for a better part of 18 years. We have, whether it's smart patrol, whether it's access control, smart stores, predictive modeling, and so on and so forth, we have been a leader within the space, in the mid-market space, for a number of years. The second is our big data and data intelligence platforms. We have been, providing these services and solutions for customers for the better part of now nearly a decade, whether it's business monitoring, traffic prediction, command centers, building automation, and so on and so forth. What we have recently acquired is our infrastructure. Now, on the infrastructure side, we've actually been building lawful interception, whether it's 5G or LTE. Now, if you look at the overall services we provide, whether it's your data center design, your data center management, build and deploy, we're actually currently building 3 different data centers in the Middle East region, and that has been super successful for us. Now, with that expertise, we're slowly expanding our services to the places of the likes of Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, which are data center hungry. As you've seen, a lot of big deals have been recently signed in Thailand. In fact, you've seen some of the biggest names on the planet actually go to Thailand and start investing very heavily in the data center space there. Then we are we're very proud of our final kind of pillar, which is our security convergence. Why? Because this has been built over the last 18 months. Now, just to give you the scale of our R&D team, we have a little over 100 people within the R&D team. We have gone from having 8 to 10 products when we went public to a little over 90 products today. And thanks to our R&D team and our CTO, we've been able to expand into OT security, in our cybersecurity using whether it's SOCs, your NOC, your prison safety, your road safety, your IoT security, and more importantly, compliance and management. So if you ask me what Gorilla does today, we kind of have our products and solutions focused on these 5 different verticals. And when it comes to industrial focus, or where we are focused when it comes to certain customers, government and public services account for about 80% of our business today. Manufacturing, telecom, and retail to about 10%, and transportation, ports, buildings to another 10%. As we go forward, we will look to be expanding our successes in ports, airports, retail, and telecom networks. And finally, if you look at our board and our management teams, we are building and we are growing very quickly. Craig, if you go to slide 6, please. We recently, slide 7 rather, sorry, my apologies. We recently appointed Keith Levi, who comes from Bank of America and Credit Suisse, to our board. What we aim to do is, we want to expand our board over the next few years, bring in a lot more tech-heavy advisors and board members. But at the same time, we also work with the board very closely on all issues on a day-to-day basis. So think of this board as not just a board of directors, but also a very strong advisory capacity committee as well. The team which we built spreads across Taiwan, Thailand, India, where we've actually started focusing on building our R&D teams. In India, we're currently, in the process of hiring. We've gone from 0 to nearly 50 people in a span of 8 to 10 months. And we're looking to expand that to about 150 people by first half of next year. And by the end of 2025, we'll probably be between the 200 to 300 people mark in India. Egypt and the UK is also growing very quickly. And when it comes to South America, we will be utilizing our partners' network and our partners' capabilities within that region. And our partner is Protactis, which is a well-known systems integrator within that region. Now, that said, one of the things which I want to address, I want to keep this presentation very short because I know a lot of you have burning questions, but I really wanted to address every single one of our shareholders today before we get into the Q&A session. Now, a lot of people are doubting our trajectory. Now, let me make this one thing very crystal clear. Gorilla is in a relentless growth mode, okay? And nothing will deter us. We are singularly focused on building this business. We are expanding our client base like crazy, growing our revenues, and fortifying our cash reserves to create what we call an unstoppable war chest. But more importantly, we're seeing that the shots may try to undermine us, but they should be afraid, very afraid, because we're just getting started, okay? And I've said this time and again, every win we secure, every client we add, every dollar we build in our cash reserves is just another nail in the coffin of those who dare to bet against us. Now, Gorilla is a force, I reckon, and with the team around me, I believe that Gorilla is a force. And as we scale, those who are trying to manipulate our stock will be squeezed out. They'll be crushed by the sheer momentum of our growth. We don't have to do anything else. And market will see for who we are. And we already know, by the way, that the Gorilla's best days are ahead of us and not behind us. And we will not stop until we become a global leader. So we will be unshakable and unrivaled. And all this thanks to the support of our dear shareholders. And I keep following all of you on various platforms. I really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Jay. Yeah, thank you very much. All right, we're moving on to questions. Type your question in after you click the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. You may also talk to us. Click the raise hand button down at the bottom of your Zoom window. Jay, we've got a flood of questions and we are sitting here curating them right now. One of the best was this. Can you help frame for investors the expected deliveries from hardware and then software/services from the Egypt contract in 2024, 25, and 26?
Okay. So just to be, very, very clear, our contract actually started in 2023. Our contract actually started in 2023. Is a 3+1 year contract. The Egypt project is a 3+1 year contract. With the project, what we are doing with the project currently is that the system architecture which we completed, the system architecture which we completed at the beginning of 2024. In a typical deployment of this nature, we focus on delivering the software solutions without typically reselling the hardware. But in this instance, the client wanted us to procure the hardware. But in this instance, so that we could be the ones to procure the hardware. So if you look at we could be the one throat to choke. Our solution is entirely software. Our solution is entirely software sitting on top of the hardware, where we are leveraging AI and sitting on top of the hardware, where we are leveraging AI and data analytics. We are providing consulting in terms of service, implementation. We are providing custom configuration, implementation, and more importantly, it needs to meet the local regulatory standards. It needs to meet the local regulatory standards of the Egyptian government. Gorilla will continue to offer ongoing support. Gorilla will continue to offer ongoing maintenance so that it remains. We make sure and maintenance so that the system remains operational and compliant with the ever-evolving regulations within the region. And compliant with the ever-evolving regulations within the region. We resell hardware. So when we are providing hardware to the customer in this particular project, so when we are providing hardware to the customer in this particular project, more importantly, it's on behalf of the customer so that we can deploy. And more importantly, it's on behalf of the customer so that we can deploy the appliances in what we call as an on-premise and the appliances in what we call as an on-premise in terms of where we are today. In terms of where we are today, we have completed phases 1 and phase 2. We have completed phases 1 and phase 3. We are currently going into phase 3. But more importantly, quite successful. Once we have completed phase 3, we will go into what is called the first layer of testing. We will go into what is called the first layer of testing. We will then start. And once we've completed the first layer of testing at scale, we will then start. As you know, this is across 31,000. So as you know, this is across 31,000 nodes, as we like to call it. Or 31,000 nodes, as we like to call it. We call in 25 and 26. This will then become will be more what we call a rollout in 25 and 26. I hope will that be more a rollout and a deployment. I hope that answers your question.
What is your earning projection?
If you'd like me to get a little more specific about those numbers, sorry, I can do that. So the guidance for this year is $72 to $74 million for the whole company. We did 21 in the first half. So that implies that the second half is going to be, the bulk of the revenue. That is, we will meet that target by having about 30 million in hardware sales, and then about 15 million in service coming from the Egypt contract, and then the balance will be from our other contracts. It's just the nature of the contract, as Jay mentions. The kind of setup was what occupied us now. The hardware gets delivered, the software gets delivered. We're configuring it, we're implementing it, customizing it, etc. And then for next year, we forecast 90 to 100 million of overall revenue. The Egyptian contract will be about 70. And then the hardware deliveries will be in the first half of the year. And then the service revenue will be spread out throughout the year. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, if you could just readdress this or address this, what is your earning projected for the whole company for this year and next?
So I actually have, if you let me share my screen, I have a slide that covers the guidance just so everyone can see it visually. So this is the guidance that we have for this year and for 2025. The share count right now outstanding is 12.35 million. So you can guess what the earnings per share would be. So I hope that helps.
So in response, Greg, this year we'll end up with a net profit of between 10 to 20 million.
Yes.
Which is in line with our expectations. But next year where our EBITDA will be creeping up quite significantly, and more importantly, our operating cash flow, and this is important, will be 100% of the EBITDA. In fact, slightly more even. So we are very excited about where we are in the next year. But what is also very important, Craig, if I may, the visibility for next year is 100%. So we have more than $93 million in backlog going into next year. So we're very confident that we'll achieve our numbers for next year. And currently, our focus is on getting over the 100 million hurdle next year, which is, we probably need to sign $7 million of contracts. But more importantly, 26 and 27 is how we get into 26 and 27.
And then just
Thank you
to add to that, for next year, we would see, for both this year and next year, we would see the free cash flow to EBITDA ratio to be 100% or more. And basically how that works is we have guarantees that we've issued to our clients. As we complete certain milestones, we invoice, we get paid, and at the same time we release the guarantee. So we're getting, that's why the cash profile looks like that. So there's an investment upfront in the contract, and then as we complete the contract, the cash returns to us.
Brian, please unmute your line. Hi, Brian, you're on with Gorilla.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Great to talk to you, Jay and Bruce. As it relates to fiscal 2025, just to those numbers, my first question, talk to us based on the mix of what kind of gross margin that assumes, and is it sustainable?
The gross margin that we assume on the mix this year, the mix next year is 45%. The gross margins have been trending up because, as Jay mentioned, our normal project path is not to procure the hardware. So revenue that we add in the future, I think, will be at 45% or higher gross margins because it'll be more service or software focused. The other thing to note is that the large contract that we have in the Middle East region right now, it was a huge contract relative to the size of the company. So we were, in some respects, price takers. And now in the future, we're more selective about the terms that we agreed to. So thus, we would expect the margins to be higher, or the other terms to be more favorable for Gorilla.
Which is a great segue, Bruce, to my next question that you and I have talked about. I think it's an important distinction you need to make for investors. That operational cash flow being greater than 100% EBITDA doesn't make sense if you look at today's filings in the past. Talk us through what investors might not understand about operating cash flow in the recently reported quarters or half, and will that shift because you burned operating cash flow? You haven't actually come close to that 100%.
Yes. So I'm going to share a simple graphic that we did earlier. Just, this will help everyone. I know you understand this, Brian, but so very simple flow in Gorilla's accounting is that we provide a service, then that is recognized as revenue. The typical approach is that we recognize it on a percentage completion basis. Then that is counted on our balance sheet as a contract asset. In the future, we're going to rename that unbilled revenue because that's what it is. And then we invoice the client when there's a milestone hit. So to give you a hypothetical example, if we have a contract, maybe we work on it for 6 months, and then we can only issue an invoice at month 6 when it's 50% complete. So what happens is we recognize the revenue for those first 6 months. It goes into contract assets, then we issue the invoice. So I'm getting somewhere with this. So then as soon as we issue the invoice, it goes into accounts receivable, then we collect. So in the typical operation of contracts, if some of our large contracts in 2023 and 2024, we posted guarantees. So that was a cash outflow. We have to lock up a guarantee to show that the customer, that they can, that's a penalty if we screw up something in the contract. And then also we have to invest into the contract in terms of making prepayments. In the case of, a couple of contracts, we had to make hardware or software prepayments. We also have to pay our staff, to perform the work, any other investments that may be required. And only, then we recognize the revenue, and only then can we bill. And only then, once we have issued the invoice, can we release the guarantees and can we get paid. So what happened is, if you look in the first half results, is we had issued invoices and they were counted as receivables. But it was only subsequent to the closing of the first half that the invoices were collected upon, and the guarantees were released back to Gorilla. So we announced in August that we had collected, on about $20 million of guarantees, and also collected a receivable that was I think 17 million. So the cash balance at one point was 41 million. The cash balance today is about 27. But we have 8.5 million of contract assets, or I'm sorry, of guarantees that will be released in the next 4 to 6 months. We also will be invoicing at least 1 billion EGP, which is about $20 million, by the end of the year, of service revenue and hardware revenue. And we will also have payment from another large contract, which we expect next week, which is $7 million. So this is why we're confident in forecasting, the cash flow
conversion
dynamics. Yeah.
I missed the guarantee number that you have left. And the other question is, do you have any major supplier payments due? Are those been satisfied for the near term?
Glad you asked that. So what I wanted to do is also highlight the 3 balance sheet items that we always get questions about. So first is contract assets. So this is what I mentioned. This is unbilled revenue. So this is currently $50 million, or sorry, as of the end of September, this is $50 million. But as I mentioned, we will be sending invoices before the end of the year we have sent an invoice actually to CIB Taiwan. That is what we're collecting on at the end of this month. That will be about $7.5 to $8 million. And then for the big contract in the Middle East, we will also be sending invoices. So this number will come down. That means cash goes up. Or first it goes to receivables and then it goes to cash. We also have, as I point out here, 8.2 million of guarantees related to the Egypt project, which will be released in the next 4 months. And then the last thing I would point out is that we have prepayments of 14.1 million. This is mostly for hardware. And this number has peaked, and it will start to go down as that equipment gets delivered, and we also invoice for it. So we think that the working capital utilization will stay at this level or go down. And that's why we expect the cash flow release to come from in the next 6 months.
Thank you very much for those questions. We've been getting a lot of questions in this vein, gentlemen. Does management have the intention of continuing to purchase shares to demonstrate confidence in Gorilla's future?
Yes. So Gorilla actually completed the purchase of about 1.1 million shares back in September of 2024 as part of the company's buyback program. Now, this is driven by our belief that obviously the stock is substantially undervalued. Now, we roughly spent about $3.8 million out of the $6 million that was allocated, and we still have enough firepower to deploy. The company also plans to repurchasing the shares as it capitalizes what we call on some of the unrestricted cash as and when that gets released. But that will be a decision made between the management and the board of the company. Now, management just to be very candid, is also currently in active discussion and working with the council and the audit committee to determine the next open window so we can make some purchases as well. So the management is and will purchase shares. Yes.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. This is for John. John, from your perspective, how does Gorilla's current valuation compare to its peers in the market, and why do you believe the company is undervalued?
Well, when we look at 21 different comps for Gorilla, which is obviously a pretty long list. There's no perfect comp, but if you look at it, it's significantly undervalued on price to sales and EV to sales. I mean, on price to sales, you're looking at a median of around 13 times, and Gorilla's trading at 0.5. So there's a lot of room there that you could discuss. Now you could say, okay, these aren't the greatest comps. Okay, let's take the lowest trading comp. It's still trading at a 70% discount to the lowest trading comp on price to sales and an 80% discount on EV to sales. So kind of almost any way you slice it, comparing it to the comps, it looks like there's a lot of room there.
Thank you very much, John. Gentlemen, this is a question about your focus on Southeast Asia and the Middle East and North Africa. What role do these regions play in your long-term strategy, and how does the company plan to scale its presence?
Well, that's a really good question. So we have been very actively involved in AI cybersecurity solutions within the region. Okay. The one thing which we have done very smartly is actually win a lot of deals within the region. Now, for example, the expansion of, let's say, the AI airside management system at the Taoyuan airport, for example, which is used for enhancing security and operational efficiencies, we have taken that particular project and showcased that to other countries. Now, for example, when we go into places like Southeast Asia, we had to build different collaborations. So we started out with some of the largest players in that region. We have obviously a collaboration with Intel within the region, but we also wanted to look at someone who developed smart cities, provided smart city infrastructure and urban infrastructure within that region. CS Energy was a likely player within that play. It's one of the largest players within the region and is a well-known player within the region. So that partnership with CS actually extends to the EV infrastructure, efficient management systems, smart grid solutions, and setting a stage for a very scalable, what we call efficient smart city development. Now, we took that, the Southeast Asia market, and are now replicating that within the Middle East, North Africa markets. And we're pursuing additional revenue opportunities for 24 and 25. Now, the one thing which we have managed to do successfully is to replicate. Rather than trying to customize different solutions across the region, we take the successes we have learned from regions such as Taiwan, Thailand, and so on, and we're replicating that. For example, Casanara in Colombia, where we secured this partnership with Protactics, and we won this project for smart city security solutions. This solution actually is something we've done for the last 15 years in Taiwan, Thailand, Japan, and other parts of Southeast Asia. So this is a post-event ICCTV system which to enhance public safety. So when the government reached out to us, we initially built a case study for them. We then positioned our solutions. They liked what they saw. They liked the price point, and then they signed the contract. Now, if you look at the market per se, just in the region in Latin America, we're forecasting about $10 billion by the 2025. That's the market. Right? And we are aiming to push our solutions within that and get a small piece of the market share.
Can I add one thing? Is that also a lot of the countries that we just mentioned, or the countries in those regions, are investment grade. So what we're trying to do is improve the overall mix of credit ratings and other terms from customers. That does two things. One, obviously, is it improves the probability of getting paid, the payment terms, etc. And also it makes it easier for Gorilla to finance its growth in the future using, bank debt or something along those lines, as opposed to raising shares.
This one's about the Taiwan airport security and recent law enforcement wins. How will these wins affect your business, both locally and globally?
We just talked about that particular project. So, for example, when you talked about the airside management in Taoyuan Airport, that is, a very mission critical security and operational efficiency project. Now, these projects not only strengthen our market leadership, not just in Taiwan, but globally as well. And it drives reputation for Gorilla as an AI-driven security solutions for critical infrastructure. Once we have achieved that reputation, we're now going after the global markets as well. Now, the global market for airport security is roughly placed at about $16 billion to $17 billion in 2027. But at the same time, if you look at the lawful interception market, where we are one of the leaders in the world, especially on 5G LI, that market is poised to grow at between $6 to $10 billion by 2026. So with the wins we currently have, we're positioned to actually take a significant share, not just in Asia, but also in the Middle East and the Latin American region. Now, also these successes, like I mentioned previously, will allow us and will enable us to replicate similar solutions across the major geographical international airports. And just to give you the scale, we're currently in active discussion with 4, 5 other airports as well simultaneously.
Yes, thank you very much. Latin American market. Could you elaborate on the potential of the Colombian contract with Protactics and how it will drive revenue?
That's a good question, actually. So if you look at Gorilla's AI-driven cybersecurity solutions, what we try to do is we try to differentiate ourselves with real-time threat detection, automated response, and advanced encryption and creating end-to-end platforms, right? Now, when we went into Colombia, we talked to them about the post-event CCTV, ICCTV, and real-time analytics systems. Once they realized Gorilla was much more than that, it was just one part of Gorilla, they reached out to us and are now talking to us about focusing on securing their critical infrastructure. So, for example, once we've got a foot in the door, we're now expanding our relationship. So it's no longer just Casanara. We're looking at Santa Marta. We're looking at Bogota. We've been approached by the governments in Brazil. And we are excited because, one, we are seeing a massive and a rapid increase in growth and a demand for our solutions. Secondly, we've analyzed the cybersecurity market and the OT security market, and we're projecting it to be about between $370 to $400 billion by 2030. And we are very well positioned in those markets with our partnerships like Protactis, NCDG, ACOM, and so on and so forth in those regions. What this has also allowed us to do, this has allowed us to actually start focusing on building more products where we can actually enhance and deploy what we call a transitional program towards digitization for these respective regions. Remember, all these countries are just coming out of their shell right now. We've got to handhold them through that process, and that's what Gorilla is doing.
John, turning to you again. You, of course, have followed Gorilla's journey closely. How would you rate the effectiveness of the current management team in executing the company's strategy, and what are some strengths that you've observed?
Sure. Certainly, what you got to look at, close your ears, Jay. I mean, because Jay is certainly the key leader here in what's going on. Bruce just joined. I'll get to Bruce in a minute. I do like what Bruce brings to the table. I think when you try and honestly assess a tech company, which I've been doing a long time, one of the things you got to do is you got to have confidence in management. And confidence in management really comes from discussions about how well they know their own business, how well they know the things that are happening, and how well they are actually able to execute and get things done. That's really the things I've seen out of Jay during my tenure is it's able to, essentially, I don't want to call him a rainmaker, but get deals done. It's a lot harder than you actually think to get deals done. And to get deals done in difficult situations. Certainly, the Middle East can always be a challenge, and to actually get them done and delivered and to get cash. So that's an area where I look at in terms of what has the company done, what has management done, do I have confidence they can do it again? Because nothing runs perfect. Let's be honest, right? There's always going to be challenges, and you've got to have confidence that management can get you through those challenges and can get you through in a way that makes sense and is efficient. Now, turning to Bruce, Bruce is certainly somewhat new to the team. And the things I like is, he's gone in and said, okay, look, we got to fix some of these things. And like I said, no company's perfect. We need to fix some of the accounting things. And I really like his experience with the project finance. I think that's going to be key to the future of the company in terms of how you raise the money to get these mega projects done, because they're not free. They're going to cost money up front. Let's get it with good terms and covenant light, right? I mean, you've got to get it in a way. So I like what Bruce brings to the table there. So let's just give you some of the thoughts that I have in terms of watching the company for this long.
Thank you very much, John. Gentlemen, can you confirm whether Gorilla will be transitioning to quarterly reporting going forward?
Yes, we'll be reporting quarterly from the first quarter of 2025. And I mean, in general, we want to improve the pace, the cadence of communication with the market. So that's why we're doing webinars. We're putting out more press releases, and we're moving to quarterly reporting. It's all part of the same movement from the company.
How are you deploying capital following the strong results from the first half of 2024? Are there updates on those share buybacks or dividends?
Bruce, do you want me to take that? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So we, following our, strong, as you said, H1 results, our share buybacks, we've completed 1.1 million shares by September 2024. We are very actively in discussions as well as looking at the markets. for the remainder of the cash and the firepower we have to deploy. What we are doing with some of the cash as well is we're expanding our pipeline into the region. Now, one of the things I alluded to is that we have a very, very strong, what we call discussions going on right now, and these cost money. And I think John hit the nail on the head. All these discussions cost money. We'll have to do proof of concepts in the regions such as Middle East, North Africa, especially in Saudi, Dubai, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, and so on and so forth. And we are actively pursuing some of these much larger projects there. We're talking, in a few $100 million. But more importantly, we are using our cash reserves very efficiently to fund future growth. And that is important for us. We want to maintain our financial flexibility. And I think Bruce alluded to that particular topic previously. We are not, or we will absolutely not try and raise equity going forward. We will look at other sources of financing for as and when we win these much larger projects.
We'll take one final question here, gentlemen. It's about share issuance. After 2 share sales this year, do you anticipate issuing additional shares in the near future?
I think we made it clear in the last couple of times we've answered that the company has cash. It can finance its growth from internal resources or from banks or lenders. And one of the reasons we did a buyback is because we wanted to show the market that the days of issuing shares are over. So hopefully that's a loud enough signal.
Okay, thank you very much. We have far too many questions. We could be here for hours answering all the questions that we have received, but there are ways for your question to reach GRRR. The best way is to copy it and paste it into an email and send it to grrr@redchip.com. Other ways to get information about GRRR, you can use our investor information page. It's redchip.com/stocks/GRRR. There you can view and download the investor presentation and fact sheet and sign up for news alerts on GRRR Technology. And you can always call us at 1-800-RED-CHIP. Please be sure to watch Small Stocks, Big Money, RedChip's program featuring exciting small cap companies, including sometimes GRRR Technology, every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg USA. And that's it. Thank you to our many participants today. And of course, thank you, Jay, Bruce, and John.
Thank you, everybody.